Welcome back to Boiler House Garage. Today we'll be fitting a new set of diesel glow plugs to the 2004 Honda Civic oil burner. First of all, I'll start up the car. Many people change these cold, which makes them a lot harder to undo and potentially snap. Plus I can demonstrate the poor starting this car is currently suffering from. The glow plug light comes on but goes out immediately, but I always leave a few more seconds for them to preheat the cylinders before cranking. So not only does it struggle to cold start, it also blows out a load of smoke if it hasn't been started for a couple of days or more. And it looks like white smoke, or steam rather, but I think it is still diesel by the smell of it, perhaps mixed with some water vapour. The engine sounds as noisy as ever, but there's a slight belt or pulley bearing grinding sound that's new. I'll pop the bonnet ready, but I'll not open it just yet as I want the top of the engine to be warm. This Civic will no longer be referred to as the oil burner, but now the Type D. You only need a basic socket set for the glow plugs, which will need to include a long reach 12mm socket, but as narrow as possible to slip between the solid high pressure fuel lines, which we'll see shortly. With the engine warmed up a little, I'm removing these 4 bolts that secure the plastic engine cover. The oil cap and breather pipe can be left as the cover will lift away with all of them in place. These are 10mm bolts. Now we can reveal the ugly fuel components. These 4 things on top here are the injectors, which, it appears 2 of them seem to be leaking, or at least the retaining plates. It's quite a fresh leak by the look of it, and this mess wasn't here a couple of weeks ago when I last had this uncovered, although there's always been a bit of a mess around the oil cap and it didn't look like an oil spill. Anyway, we'll stick to the job in hand. The glow plug leads look like small HT lead caps, but with much thinner wires as it's not high tension at all. Each one is directly underneath these solid high pressure fuel lines feeding the injectors, and are removed by squeezing each side just where you can see the pushing tabs. And off she pops, all clean inside, and we just need to tuck it out of the way so we can get the socket on top of the old glow plug, which is now revealed. Notice all the crud just behind it. We don't want that falling into the open glow plug hole, so I'm using some parcel tape stuck on the handle of an old toothbrush. Ideally you'd use a small vacuum nozzle or even blow it out with an airline, but this brush is handy just to get around the area, although not quite deep enough for the grip here, hence why I'm using the tape to pick it up. Just a couple of bits of tape and it's all clear. I'm putting the socket on first as it makes sure it's seated fully over the glow plug. This is important as these are sometimes over tightened or stuck and can snap off, plus it makes it easier to get as straight as possible angle with a ratchet extension. If you have an articulating or UJ extension, then it makes life a little easier, but this can be done with a straight bar, as I'll demonstrate, by placing it into the top of the socket, but not so that the small ball bearing clicks in. Then you place a slow but firm pressure to undo the plug, remembering again the potential for them to snap off. With the universal joint you can do this a bit quicker, as these plugs do have quite long threads. When it eventually spins freely, remove the socket and pull the plug out by hand, or use some long nose pliers if you have chubby fingers. Also be wary that if you have had the engine running, the glow tips at the bottom could be rather hot. Well, look at the state of that. I'm clearly not wasting my time changing these with a shiny new set. As with the removal, you will need to install the new glow plug to the right side of this fuel line. This applies to all 4 cylinders. But first we have an optional step. I say optional as there's some disagreement about greasing the threads. Some say not to, some say to use copper grease, some say to use another type of grease. I'm going to add a thin smear of copper grease to the middle part of the threads. I dare say these plugs will outlive the car now, but this should make them as easy to remove again as they were for me to do. Try to start the thread with your fingers to help avoid cross-threading, or just place the socket over the plug and try finger tightening them with that. Once the thread is turning with ease, you'll need to screw it all the way down and treat the final torque like a spark plug, remembering that it's preferable to have a loss of compression and have to repeat this than the total nightmare of having a snapped off plug. The long thread is what deals with the high compression, not a higher torque. If you do have a small torque wrench, I've heard anywhere from 6 to 12 foot-pounds, which is 8 to 17 newton meters from various sources on other cars that this Isuzu engine is used in, Honda, Vauxhall and of course Isuzu vans and trucks. With such low torque settings, hand tight with a small half-inch ratchet is often fine. Now we'll refit the lead, which should press down to a satisfying click. Check it's secure and doesn't wobble, then we've got the trickier job of taking these off cylinder 2 and 3. It's trickier because there's more in the way for hands to squeeze the top of the caps. So you can move this injector wiring by undoing these 2 bolts, and now the wiring isn't pushing into your thumb or finger as you try and remove them. I did attempt levering it out with a pair of flathead screwdrivers, but the plastic is quite brittle and was starting to crack, so I had no choice but to do it by hand. Again, you access, remove and replace the plug on the right side of this fuel line. I'm going to do cylinder 2 and 3 at the same time and have both the caps off together. You can undo this centre part of the injector wiring here and move it back. I'm going to try and use the jointed socket to access the plug from the left side, however. Again, it's gentle and steady pressure, but ideally you'll be at a straighter angle if you do remove that centre bit and use a regular extension. Cylinder 4 plug is as easy to do as 1, so it's just a repeat of the first, thankfully. Now number 2 is loose, I still have to lift it up on the right hand side of the fuel line, like so. You can still finger tighten the middle plugs despite the more limited access. It's actually going in smoother than the first one was. At this point, the battery on my hard-used 4-year-old phone went flat, so I had to put it on charge for an hour. I have been meaning to replace my phone for a year, so now seems like a good time to plug my Nexo referral link, where we will both receive $25 worth of Bitcoin if you sign up using my link in the description. But hurry, as this offer ends in a matter of days when the bonus is lowered to just $10 at the end of January. You can use Nexo to earn high interest on regular fiat currency, so it's also a good platform even if you're not interested in investing in cryptocurrency. I earn 10% APY on my savings, and this interest is paid daily and compounds. It's a great way to make passive income to help with the current rate of inflation. Any questions on how to get started on Nexo, please comment below. Now hopefully my phone battery is recharged and we can get back to the video. So it's a little darker outside now, but I've given the leaks around these injector seals a clean up with some carb cleaner and a good wipe down so we can see how bad the leak is. I reattached the 2 wiring brackets, and don't forget these 2 if you've removed those. All 4 plugs are in and connected. I'll put the oil cap back on, which I've removed for cleaning, and we'll give her a start. The glow plug light still goes on and off immediately, which is a shame, but it only takes a few cranks to start. The engine is cold, however there might be some heat retained from earlier, so a fair try will be tomorrow morning, which will no doubt be well below freezing. Meanwhile, we'll have a quick look at these leaks. I nipped up the bolts on these right 2, but only a fraction of the turn as they're already pretty tight. If the leaks continue or get worse, I'll have to look into getting new gaskets or resealing them however they fit. There's no obvious major leak, and the wetness you can see around the injectors is just the residual carb cleaner. So there's no leak from the valve cover gasket or head gasket by the look of things. The black gunge there is just what I missed from the clean earlier. I'll just keep my eye on this for now, but we'll still replace the cover as it's easy enough to take on and off with these 4 bolts. So that's how you change a set of glow plugs. As you can see here, these weren't done a moment too soon. In fact, they were way overdue, as some of the tips are disintegrated and have been mashing around inside the engine internals since who knows when. But tomorrow morning will be the real test, so I'll see you then bright and early. It's now 7 AM and minus 3 degrees Celsius. That's about, I don't know, 24 Fahrenheit. Ignore the temp gauge on the car, it says 0, but it's actually minus 3. And look at that, that is much better. See you in the next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you do comment, sometimes YouTube removes them randomly and arbitrarily, but please feel free to try again, as I have to stress it is not me removing any of them, and the same happens to me when I interact with channels I'm subscribed to. But for now, thanks very much for watching.